My name's Charles Reeve. I'm the team leader of CRIDF. I've been since it started back in 2013. I want to speak really about work we've done in one transboundary basin. So I want to speak about the work we've been doing in the Okavango Basin. As many of you might know, the Okavango is shared between Angola, Namibia and Botswana. It's on the kind of western coast of southern Africa. For many of you, it'll be better known for the Okavango Delta and its wildlife, but it is also home to something in excess of 3 million people who largely depend on the natural resources of the basin. About 90% of the water resources in the Okavango come from the Angolan highlands, but of course they flow down into the Okavango Delta. Just some of the challenges, normal kind of competing challenges for water resources between urban development, livelihoods, tourism, particularly increasingly commercial agriculture, water extraction, also largely for places outside of the basin. And then there are the kind of corresponding threats: population growth, climate change, commercial agriculture, deforestation. These are the kind of typical effects. So way back 25 years ago, the three countries established the permanent Okavango River Basin Commission, interestingly established at a time when Namibia was just achieving independence from South Africa and at a time when Angola was actually in the middle of a civil war. But interestingly, the Okavango Commission was established. It recently enjoyed its 25th anniversary. It's been through a number of phases, illustrated here, but maybe better in this diagram. There was quite a long foundation stage of trust building, and then it's gone into recent years into a more visioning phase and various development phases. I want to talk a little bit about each of those with a particular focus on some of the work CRIDF's been doing. Foundation phase, as I say, it was largely about building trust. The real key output from that was the transboundary diagnostic analysis, which was completed around 2011 and subsequently was turned into what's called the Strategic Action Plan for the basin. And there are corresponding national action plans. And those plans are still the founding documents on which developments in the basin occur. More recently, CRIDF has been supporting what was called the visioning phase, essentially to develop a vision for the basin. This was done through extensive processes of stakeholder engagement across the basin, and they came up with this vision for the Okavango River Basin: socially just, economically prosperous, and environmentally healthy development of the Okavango River Basin. This is the vision that was been agreed on. It's been adopted at ministerial level. A really interesting thing as part of that, we spoke to the stakeholders around issues of how they wanted to collaborate. And this is just a very quick summary of some of the responses. And I think the important thing here is the stakeholders want to move into really looking at shared benefits and cooperative actions in the basin. Rather than individuals, countries making developments, they were looking to the basin-wide developments to share benefits and cooperate. And I think this is what has then led into the next phase, which is the kind of starting to look at the developments. So to start to look at the developments, really here it was starting to look at options with World Bank support through the CEWA program, of course, which FCDO contributes to. A multi-sector investment opportunity analysis was carried out. This is just a very broad perspective on it. A number of different development scenarios were investigated, ranging from effectively doing nothing right up to some very major agriculture and hydropower developments. In some of the scenarios to the bottom there, we're talking in excess of 300,000 hectares of potential irrigation in the basin. The MASOA looked at these different options and then evaluated them. This is just some of the results here, looking at the benefits at a basin level of the different scenarios, splitting them down to benefits at different country level. And I think a key element here is the kind of line at about 2,300, which is kind of the limit that essentially any developments above that were foreseen to be really threatening the ecosystem's integrity of the basin. And this was a really important conclusion, that some developments can happen, but actually, if you get some of the larger developments, then you start having ecosystems integrity problems. This is just an indication of the impact on employment and wages, etc. So an economic analysis of the options was done. More interestingly, an analysis that was done on the impact on the ecosystems and other things. I think it's trying to get this balance in line with the vision, a vision of social justice for the people in the basin, ecosystems integrity, as well as economic growth. Say a little bit about climate change. We did some work looking at the impact of climate change on those Mosoa interventions. Here's just some indications of the kind of future climates within the Okavango. The basin actually almost crosses two climatic zones. In the upper part of the basin, it's dominated by the ITCZ and the continental climate. You are largely seeing temperature increases of a couple of degrees and most likely a small increase in rainfall, which is critical in terms of the fact that most of the water comes from the Angolan highlands. When you go down to the delta, you're getting onto the edge of the Kalahari, and you're seeing similar increases in temperatures, but most likely you're seeing significant reductions in rainfall. So you've got this kind of mix of different climate effects across different parts of the basin. Obviously, in more extreme terms, you get larger rises, and certainly there are predictions which are talking about summer temperatures in parts of the basin increasing potentially by up to 10 degrees centigrade by the beginning of the next century. So we looked at these impacts, and again, I'm not going into all the detail here, but you can see in the columns here some of the Mosoa scenarios. The climate change ones, which is where you start getting more of the reds coming in, are basically looking at the impact of climate change on those scenarios. And essentially saying, as you go forward, climate change could well mean that some of those scenarios are no longer viable. And this has also been built into the analysis. The other thing that was done at the same time as Mosoa was something around looking at the benefits across the basin, worked with UNECE on this, just to look at some of the benefits, economic benefits, social benefits, peace, security benefits, etc. And I think it's really interesting to start looking at different types of benefits from the basin. And you know, just the fact that by collaborating, the countries have managed to secure resources for the sorts of studies I'm now talking about. In terms of benefits, many of the benefits have actually been accrued towards the downstream end of the basin, particularly in Botswana, with less benefits accrued upstream in Angola. And I think that's one of the major discussions going forward, is how some of the benefits that have already been accrued are shared across the basin. Moving on now into kind of the more project preparation side. What came out of the Mosoa was one of the things that was really needed was a livelihoods program. Effectively, this is the key development that is needed for the social justice aspect. People in the basin are dependent on the ecosystems, and protecting ecosystem integrity and ensuring livelihoods for the people is a key intervention. And CRIDF has been working closely with the Okavango Basin Commission around developing that. We've done some work around mapping vulnerability across the basin, identifying key vulnerable zones. And again, this is just a brief summary of some of that. And ultimately, we've also been involved with actual project construction. These are some pictures from a project that we're actually constructing in northern Namibia at a place called Mayana to the east of Rundu on the banks of the Okavango River. This is a river intake that will feed a small-scale irrigation project. And the particular focus here on climate resilience being moving farmers out of the floodplain where they are affected by flooding into above the floodlines, into an area where they have a reliable and secure source of water. The agriculture then feeding into local supply chains in the tourism industry and elsewhere. That's a kind of proof of concept project of livelihoods. Out of all of this has become something that's called the Okavango River Basin Fund, or the CORP Fund. This is a fund that we've been working with the establishment of to basically fund those livelihoods and conservation activities in the basin. The sorts of activities it would fund, and I refer particularly to the parts of this slide up at the top right-hand corner, social interventions with social benefits, according to nutrition, agricultural productivity, energy, really around the nexus type approaches, but also larger landscape activities, conservation activities to ensure ecosystems integrity. And we've been working very closely with the Nature Conservancy on this work and developing this fund. The idea is to establish a fund. We are now in the establishment phase. We're looking at raising seed finance to get the fund operational and for more proof of concept projects. And ultimately, we're looking to establish an offshore endowment fund of $200 million plus, which would use capital to fund these projects. And I've been part of a conference this week at Ceres in the States looking at financing for this project. These are some of the benefits. Looking at the benefits, again, I refer to the right-hand side. The benefits basically are you get a kind of 7-fold increase or 8-fold increase in investments. And we're still actually working on this, and I think the figures will increase even further as we build in all of the conservation benefits as well. And this is starting to become quite an attractive proposition, particularly to the impact investors and those thinking about development bonds. We've established a company now called the Corp Fund. It's a company limited by guarantee in Botswana. Directors have been appointed, and as I say, we're seeking funds to support the operation of that. That's a brief overview of what we've been doing in the Okavango Basin.